lobby on behalf of GLBT legislation. As a national organization, we've been around, I think, for about 30 years or so. Started in California with the Briggs Initiative, which basically was an attempt to keep gay teachers out of the classroom, and Log Cabin kind of coalesced around there. I think there's about 30 or so chapters across the country that support efforts locally. Log Cabin, Illinois is one of those chapters. Log Cabin, Illinois used to be Log Cabin, Chicago. Obviously, the gay population is pretty dense in the Chicagoland area, and so that's where the organization kind of got its start from. But over the past 5 years or so, we've recently seen a growth in gay conservatives, gay Republicans throughout the state of Illinois. Springfield, Carbondale, DuPage County, the north suburbs, the south suburbs. And so we kind of changed our charter to support the efforts of developing these pockets of gay conservatives throughout the state. And the reason why this is important is because we could only really authentically lobby a handful of legislators that touch Chicago and touch gay communities. The importance of finding gay conservatives throughout the state is so that we can leverage those members to make phone calls on our behalf to legislators that might not ever receive lobbying efforts from gays and lesbians or from people that are proponents of gay-friendly legislation. And so as we do that, we can then, one of the things that we're really tired of is as we call on legislators downstate, they go, well, thank you very much for your contact and reaching out to me on this subject matter, but I don't have gays in my district. And we know that's really just, completely false. And so that's one of our kind of our primary efforts right now. Just for a show of hands, how many in here would consider themselves Republican or conservative? Okay, how many of you would consider yourselves liberal or Democrat?
Kind of a tweener right now.
All right.
I'm trying to figure it all out. I'm changing.
We don't have any kind of glorious expectations that anyone in this room will be converted to the Republican Party or to conservatism. The purpose of this presentation and this discussion is to convince you that there is a conservative perspective for pursuing GLBT equality. That unless we fully engage both parties, we're not really going to get much progress. And we're going to look at some cases across the country where it has exactly been that bipartisan support that's advanced our agenda. And just to kind of clear the air, a lot of people are sometimes confused about what kind of legislative agenda Log Cabin supports. We basically support, most of Equality Illinois' legislative agenda, HRCs, Lambda Legals. We believe in civil unions, and we fight for marriage equality where it's possible. We fight for non-discrimination, hate crimes legislation, all those same sort of things. So it's not that we're some part of the Republican Party that tries to convince gays to support legislation that's against their communities. We're very much so out there lobbying Republicans specifically on how they can vote for gay-friendly legislation. So with me today, I have Caitlin Huxley, which is a member of the Log Cabin, Illinois board. There's 4 of us. And Adam Robinson is a candidate for Illinois State Senate, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to play a little bit of a game. Half of my board said this was a terrible idea. The other half, well, me thought it was a really good idea, so I decided to do it anyways.
We'll let you know.
So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go through some photos of some pretty well-known political personalities and have a discussion around whether they're friend or foe. We're going to go through this pretty quickly. This is just kind of the icebreaker part of it. So the first one we see, this is obviously Harvey Milk. This is a friend of the gay community. Duh. George W. This is certainly someone that a lot of us consider to be a foe of the gay community. He's certainly rhetorically been against us on a lot of our legislative agenda. However, even staunch conservatives or staunch Republicans like George W. Bush has been a supporter to some extent of the gay community, and he's supported us in a very specific way, and that's through hiring. A lot of the senior staffers in his administration were openly gay. These were not closeted gay men and women. He also left in place a Clinton policy that called for basically supporting unmarried partners with the Foreign Service Organization. So that's a small win for us. He also dramatically increased funding for AIDS outreach in Africa, these are things that Republicans don't typically get a lot of kudos for because they're out there, to some extent, preaching hate. But even Republicans can be good on very small portions of the GLBT agenda. And what's really important about this sort of tactic is that these are now people that are in place that have access to the president or that have access to conservatives and Republicans. These are people that are in a position to change the hearts and minds of people that typically don't side with us on our agenda. Bill Clinton, famous person, he's generally considered a friend of the gay and lesbian community, with the exception of the Defense of Marriage Act and the signing of the national legislation. So here we see a pretty important instance of a prominent Democrat, a prominent liberal, a very progressive individual generally, who, based on the current of the time, supported two pieces of legislation that now we're spending millions and millions of dollars and lots of foot traffic on trying to overturn. So we're going to get into a little bit more, a bit later about how, we can't leave Democrats off the lobbying table. We have to continue talking with Democrats on how these issues impact our families and our communities. This is, anyone know?
Andrew Sullivan.
Andrew Sullivan. He's a noted gay conservative, political pundit. He's critical of both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. He's a contributor to a magazine and a blog for the Atlantic. He's probably one of the most famous vocal gay conservatives out there. He's really helped gay Republicans, log cabiners, kind of architect the conservative argument for things like marriage equality, don't ask, don't tell, defeat hate crimes and the like. So he's someone to watch. Nancy Pelosi. Wonderful Speaker of the House.
Friend,
I'm not pretending to be unbiased. I am a Republican and I am completely biased. So why is she up on the screen? So she's a friend of our movement, right? I mean, she votes our way on legislation, but it's, for right now at least, it has not been politically expedient for her to advance our cause. So we still have to put pressure even on Democrats that tend to side with us on lots of gay-friendly legislation. Colin Powell. Foe, kind of. He was a big supporter of Don't Ask, Don't Tell when Bill Clinton signed into law. And now he's more of a friend because he's basically recently come out saying that Don't Ask, Don't Tell can certainly happen. The overturning of Don't Ask, Don't Tell should easily happen and we should move forward on that legislation. So here's someone whose heart and mind has been changed through conversation, through reaching out, through conversation. John McCain. So he's an interesting character, right? John McCain was, to some extent, a friend of the gay community. He was a vocal opponent of the federal marriage amendment. He really believed that, or believes still, since he's still alive. He believes that marriage equality, civil unions, is really a states' rights issue, and that this issue should not be mandated by the federal government, and certainly should not be articulated in an amendment to the Constitution. However, if you know, John McCain also is a big supporter of amending the Arizona state constitution to limit marriage to a man and a woman. So here's another character where he's a friend on some issues, but certainly not a friend fully. Dick Cheney. Ardently one of probably the most powerful Republicans that we've seen today. A lot of them, credit Dick Cheney with being the puppet master behind George W. Bush. Ironically enough, he's a friend. He's a supporter of civil unions and marriage equality. He definitely believes that this is a states' rights issue. His daughter is a lesbian, and he fully supports her orientation. So he's a friend. So we have to leverage people like him to twist the arms and educate other Republicans or other conservatives on these issues, even though it's not like HRC or Republic of Illinois is knocking on the door of Dick Cheney, ever. So it's up to Log Cabin to engage Republicans like that. So this is we're not going to go through all these numbers, but basically there is a history of GOP support at the federal level for gay-friendly legislation. As far back as, this only goes to 2004. We have the Federal Marriage Amendment. 26 House Republicans voted against that legislation. And so we see that it is not true that Republicans don't support GLBT equality. From time to time, we do find pockets of Republicans in legislature that can support us. And that's generally through the efforts of lobbyists like Log Cabin or HRC reaching out to Republicans that can be a little more moderate on some of these pieces of legislation. And so one of the things that Log Cabin does, to reiterate, Log Cabin attempts to identify